Let's get into it. One of my best friends out there. We talk music, we talk family, and he is a new dad. a virtual round of applause for that, because we all know what that's like, right? I mean, you're like 2-3 weeks into this. So, Derek, my good friend, thank you guys so much. Let's get into some good learning, and I'm going to turn it over to Derek. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Gary. You guys, for some of you guys that don't know Gary, he's been with Oversea Home for a long time, and he does a much better job when he's in person of that. I was still pretty good, but he does a much better job when he's in person of that. But no, thanks, Gary. Excited to be with you guys again today. I've probably met a handful of you guys in person over the last year and a half, 2 years that we've been, the SnapAV has been expanding our reach into the local ecosystems with you guys, and to, with the ultimate goal is to get you guys hands-on with our product, get it in front of you, so give you easier access, faster access, but ultimately just giving you people to interact with and talk to about it, right? And so people like Gary and people that are in your local stores, that that's our ultimate goal, is just to help you guys have a partner and be there with you as much as possible, and training and education is a big piece of that. And so for those that don't know me, that may be new to seeing me, my name is Derek Webb. I'm one of the technical trainers at SnapAV. I've been with SnapAV for almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years here in August. I've started in tech support for 5 years. I moved over to training, just a little over 2 years ago, and that's what I'm doing now. I love doing it. I talk about stuff all the time. It's a lot of fun. So the way that I always do these things is I encourage you guys to ask questions as we go through it today. You're going to drive where we go. I have far less presentation material than I typically have for a training, you could say. Today is more about live demos, showing you guys what this new experience inside of OvrC looks like, how is it different, giving you those examples, and then really rehashing some of the examples we've gone over in previous trainings, and just showing you that the experience in terms of doing it isn't any different, but the experience in terms of efficiency and making this faster and easier to use definitely is different. So with that being said, we're going to get rolling. Real quick, if anyone is having any audio problems, you probably can't hear me, but you can see my screen here really quick. And so please, if you're having any of those audio problems, use the little audio options option here to select your audio settings on the previous screen. And then if you do have questions, please use that Q&A feature. Chat is turned off in this webinar, so you will have to use that Q&A feature to ask questions. And so I encourage you guys to ask questions. If you don't, it's going to be a very short webinar. I can talk as long as I want to, but at the end of the day, this thing is only as good as you guys make it. And so if you guys want to see me show you anything, if you have feedback on the new platform, whatever it may be, please ask away, and we'll make sure we go in those directions for you guys. So the whole idea, and before we kind of get into the new platform, I always like to just kind of start every OvrC conversation that we have in training with an update on where OvrC stands today, right? I think it's important to continue to involve you guys in the growth of this platform. It is the #1 cloud management platform in the industry by far, and it's a big deal for us to continue to remind you guys that it's going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to invest in it as much as possible, because we're asking you guys to do something really important as well, which is also invest in the platform. We're going to invest our money, but you guys are going to invest your business in a tool like this. And you have to be confident, and you have to understand this is a major platform. This isn't something that we just kind of drummed up and it sits on a server in the corner of the office here in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a massive platform that sits on Amazon Web Services, and we just finished rebuilding the entire back end to get to what we're going to talk about today, which is the new OvrC. And so to give you some updated numbers there, we have about 12,000 unique users interacting with the OvrC platform in any given month today. We eclipsed the 330,000 location mark just recently. So that's 330,000 different job sites that some form of OvrC is deployed on, which is pretty awesome to talk about when we talk about growth. We're adding about 7,000 locations every single month, and we've actually kept that consistency during a lot of the quarantine and pandemic over the last couple of months as well. If anything, we've seen some good trends of it going up, because of the value of having remote access into your clients' homes has only increased right? As clients are a little bit less willing to let you come in, or they don't want you to being there as long, or frankly, you may not want to go to some of your clients' homes with everything that's been going on. And so it's a big deal for us to continue to grow this thing. And we just hit that, cross that 9 million device limit mark as well, to give you guys just to continue to grow the amount of devices that are out there. So that's where OvrC stands today in terms of the growth of the platform. But really what we're going to talk about today is not just the growth, but what has changed in the backbone of the platform, right? When you really look at the nuts and bolts, there are no major, I guess you could say, feature changes just yet in the OvrC platform. When we say you can do this brand new thing right now, you will see those coming soon. The biggest thing that changed is the backbone of the ecosystem to really allow us to provide you guys some better efficiency, more reliable notifications, a more consistent user experience. At the end of the day, we want this to be the best platform for you to build your business around, especially as you start to grow into that remote management and recurring revenue models, right? And so the first thing that we really notice with the new OvrC platform is a new and improved UI, right? And so if you look at that new UI, the second you log into the new OvrC, it's a very consistent and clean feel now. Nothing's moved per se. We haven't taken features away from you or whatever it may be. We've done a lot of work to just improve the navigation experience. One, it's a cleaner look, it's crisper. Two, it's much faster as you load into your clients' locations and their device list. The ability to navigate through these device lists, that experience is much, much better now. The days of sitting here loading, trying to log into a device or trying to get information for that device to pop up, those types of experiences are going to be much faster moving into this new platform. And the reason for that is what we've moved into is starting to virtualize the platform. What I mean by virtualizing is in the previous version of OvrC, everything that OvrC had in its interface that you see on your screen, all of that data, all that information lived on the device. And so for OvrC to know what was going on, it had to ping the device constantly to get consistent feedback to know what was happening. And because of that experience, sometimes you would get false positives. Sometimes a device would say offline when it was really online, or things like that. And because if OvrC timed out trying to reach a device, that could show a false positive. So if there was really poor network connection, it was really slow, or a lot was going on, that could create some bad experiences there. In the new platform, we've moved to a virtualization type experience where we're, I won't say storing information, but we're caching the information of your devices in the cloud, so that when we go to access that, we're not having to download all the setting changes. We're not having to download all the names of your outlets into Wapbox. We're not having to get all the simple information. All we care about is what's the current status, right? Is something turned on, something turned off, what is the status? And so the experience is much faster because we're starting to cache so much more information and allow that experience to be a lot faster when you're accessing the devices. So on the front end, it's faster for you guys to see it. But another thing that it really gives you some cool visibility to is you now get offline information for your devices as well. So in the previous version of OvrC, if a device went offline, you couldn't see it. It was gone. You had no information. So if a device failed, I know this is one that happened a ton, right? If you had a Wapbox that failed on a job site and you wanted to go replace it, if you didn't know what the outlets were named beforehand, you didn't have a screenshot, you didn't have it saved anywhere, you would have to remember where you plugged everything in, trace all your wires back to the right device so that you could properly rename things. Now you have the information saved in the cloud. It's there for you. So you get the last information for it, and you can still see that offline device information for your devices. Again, it's because we're virtualizing the platform. This is the first example of what virtualization does for us. This is not the last example. You will continue to see us utilize this type of technology to truly power what we're going to be able to give you guys in the future. The new OvrC, like I said, you could say it's basic on the front end today because there's no grand feature set, but the back end of what we've done is extremely powerful to the growth and the future of this platform as well. So that's some of the things you'll see right away. It's just faster, more improved navigation. the ability to just get to what you need much faster across the board there. And the next piece that we kind of talk about here is a more consistent user experience. And so what I mean by that is, in the previous version of OvrC, you were locked in to essentially a very fixed user experience, in that your devices, depending on the size of the screen, the feature set you had changed. And really what it meant is, the smaller your device was, right, from phone to tablet to desktop, the smaller your device was, the less features you had access to in your setup and deployment of OvrC devices. And that could be a pain for a lot of people, right? If you're deploying a WAP box, you may not have access to set up a certain feature. If a client wants OvrC Home and you only have your phone with you, you couldn't set up OvrC Home for your client unless you had your computer. So one of the biggest things we wanted to give you guys is a consistent user experience at every single level. Every feature you have on the desktop version of OvrC, you now have on the tablet version and the mobile phone version of OvrC as well. And so you can see, I'm looking at my same job site here. This is my house here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have the exact same feature sets. I have all of my OvrC Home features that I would have if I was sitting on the desktop interface of OvrC Home right here behind me. All that is there available for me right now. I have all the same features to go into my device list and see all my devices. You guys saw how fast that was. That's two different devices. These aren't the, I'm not, trying to mimic this for you guys. This is two of the same devices, because again, we're caching the information, so it's living in the cloud in a much more easy to access environment for you guys. So that experience, that navigation experience, is really powerful for you guys to continue to stay efficient, allow you guys to continue to grow and build around this platform as you kind of talk about it. And so as we kind of go through a little bit more today, I want to kind of keep talking about and rehashing some of those feature sets that we talk about with this platform through and through. And so I think I saw one question that came through. I want to make sure that I understand. Okay, yeah, so I see that Bill is asking, any plans for integration with ConnectWise? So for those that don't know, ConnectWise is a tool that a lot of you guys use to manage your processes, probably submit quotes and create designs for customers. Similar way to how you would use D-Tools. I know there's some other ones that are out there as well. So Bill, that's a great question. I have not heard of any plans to integrate tools like that. I know we've had the question to integrate tools like that in the past, mainly because if you're building a job in that tool, it'd be great if you could transfer all that over really quickly. And so nothing that I've heard of just yet, but some of the ideas that we see with virtualization is, because you can see a device when it's offline now, what if you could set up a device before it ever existed, right? What if you could build a job site before it ever existed? Because that is a virtual device, you virtually add a new WAP box, you set it up. When that device is deployed, you push that information to that WAP box appropriately. So those are some of the ideas we're thinking that we can accomplish there. Not exactly what you're asking for, but virtualization gives us some really cool tools to kind of accomplish some of that. But great question, thanks for asking. So if we continue to kind of break this apart, and I'll show you some more examples as we go through this, is I just want to always rehash and redefine the OvrC platform so you guys continue to understand. And I always rehash it and redefine it because every single training I do on OvrC, there's always somebody asking again, oh, well, do I have to pay for that? Oh, what does it come with? And sometimes it's the same person asking the same question again. But at the end of the day, we always want to redefine what this is so you guys understand what you have access to, so you can keep using OvrC to the absolute fullest extent. So the first piece here on the left-hand side, that's what we call OvrC native integration. That is the integration you get when you buy a SnapAV product with that OvrC logo, right? If it has an OvrC logo, that means this device is natively integrated into the actual device, into the OvrC platform itself. You deploy just a WAP box, you deploy just an Arachnus PoE switch, just a binary MOIP system, just a Luma surveillance IP camera, Sunbright TV, Episode IP amplifier. You deploy just that, then you have access to OvrC by itself on that device. That's powerful. That doesn't cost you anything. That gives you extra control, extra visibility, and at the end of the day, more value inside of that product than what you would have beforehand. And that is the value of the OvrC ecosystem under SnapAV. We're a manufacturer of hardware. We're also a developer of software at many different levels. That gives us the ability to integrate our products into this platform in a very, very unique way. That's the idea of native integration. We'll show some examples here in a little bit. An extension of that native integration is Oversea Home. I kind of showed you a little bit ago what that looks like, but Oversea Home is the ability to extend the value that you have with OvrC to your clients as well. So what I mean by that is you give your clients an end user facing app that allows them to go in and do some of the stuff you're doing, like resetting the port on a WAP box or rebooting a PoE port on an Arachnus PoE switch. It also allows you to brand your OvrC account with, or your company inside the Oversea Home app so that they can properly remember who you are, have your contact information. We also have some cool features inside of the Oversea Home application that allows you to control Wi-Fi access for your clients, or allow your client to control that, as well as block different types of websites through that as well. So I see some great questions here that we'll get into in just a second. And then the last piece that Oversea Home is really, really important is the OvrC Pro experience. So OvrC Pro is the last piece of the OvrC ecosystem, the third piece of the puzzle, if you will, which is the extension of OvrC into products that SnapAV doesn't manufacture, right? All these third-party products that give you, you're going to keep installing, you're going to keep using, some because we don't make them, some because they're just a competitor and you like using that competitor more than you like using our product, which is okay, and we get that. And so OvrC Pro is all about giving you site management, not just management over our stuff, right? Because we get that. Our stuff can't be everything, but site management over everything on that job site. And so that's giving you a global device dashboard. It's giving you network statistics like speed test information, the ability to view all of those third-party devices and be notified if your third-party devices are going offline. And then some unique integrations that I see some questions already coming through about, which is third-party access to those devices for remote access and setup, whether that is a UI of a physical device like a third-party network switch, access point, audio video receiver, whatever it may be, as well as some deep integration for control over those devices as well. So I won't leave this screen up here too long. You can find a lot of these examples on snapav.com. I believe they have it on your local branches websites as well, in the stores, all the devices we have integration with. I'll show you guys some examples as we go through it. But I do see some good questions that have come through that are definitely relevant to some of this stuff. So 3 buckets: OvrC native integration, OvrC Home. While they're 2 separate applications, they go hand in hand with each other. OvrC Home expands upon what OvrC native integration does. All of these feature sets right here, they're all free. You don't pay anything for these feature sets. It is the value of buying the product that has our logo on it, if you will. That is one of our value adds at SnapAV and with OvrC enabled platforms. And then OvrC Pro is the first piece that might cost you money. Depending on your level with SnapAV, that could change a little bit here and there. If you buy our Arachnus routers, OvrC Pro comes embedded for free. We sell a standalone hub that will cost you some form or sum of money on a job site. If you deploy Arachnus routers, you get all the OvrC Pro feature sets for free. So that's my quick global spiel on the 3 pieces here. Let's go back into some demos. Let me show you some examples here as we kind of go through these things. So I see a couple of questions that have come through here. One is, will there be an ability to see the IP of ports on a switch? So I assume what you're saying is a network switch. Can you see the IP address of those ports on that switch? Kind of, but not really. So when you look at the ability to see ports and the IP address, say an OvrC of that, you have to understand the way that the network switch works. So if you look at a layer 2 network switch, a layer 2 network switch means that it operates at layer 2 of the OSI model. And what that means is that layer 2 of the OSI model, for those that haven't been through PCNA or any of our other network trainings for Arachnus, that's really your MAC address layer. What that means is that all traffic on layer 2 of the OSI model only has visibility to the MAC address. It doesn't know what the IP address is of that traffic. When you move into a layer 3 switch, IP addresses become visible on those devices. So technically speaking, you could manually put in IP information into your ports, but that's not really going to hold true. It's not going to really keep track of it appropriately. What you really need is a layer 3 switch to be able to get visibility to those types of devices here. So I don't know what I'm looking at right now. This is our new Pack Edge MS switch we just released here recently. I don't believe we're showing just yet the IP information, but eventually we'll be able to show IP information of every single port on this switch because it's a layer 3 switch, and our actual switch can see the IP address of those ports. We haven't embedded it just yet for this exact example, but that's where you start to get the ability to see IP information. There's some things that I know we're trying to do in the background to kind of virtually link these devices to show IP information up potentially. The problem is we won't always be able to fully keep it together as things change, because at some point that layer 2 switch will lose visibility to the IP information. So I see a great question here around comparing with the modes will allow for VPNs to be created, allowing you guys to program systems remotely in the future. So that's a great question. And what I ask is what it is you're looking to use that for in specific examples, right? So I hear you with programming. So we may implement VPN-like features down the road, but we already have features that allow you to do that today. And I think a lot of people aren't familiar with those features. So obviously, first and foremost, everything that I have that has this little globe icon right here, these are OvrC Pro discovered devices. That globe means that. If that globe has a green icon, that means that device has some deeper integration into the OvrC Pro ecosystem versus another device that's out there today. So a good example is, say, a Roku, for example. I get a lot of really great status and data over this Roku right here. I can also see all the installed apps on that Roku. You see right now, YouTube TV is active. My wife is downstairs with our newborn watching some kind of TV show. I know that's what she's doing. If I wanted to, I could actually launch something else on her. She wouldn't be happy, so I'm not going to do that right this second. But those are some examples of deep integration that's embedded into the OvrC Pro side of the ecosystem. But on top of that, you still have access and visibility to the web UI of many of your devices that OvrC Pro discovers as well. So like my Denon AVR, for example, there's no deep integration into this Denon AVR. I'm getting some information around MAC address, manufacturer information, IP, stuff like that. I get ping test info. But if I do want to control this, I still have access to basically Web Connect into the web UI of this Denon interface. That is local and remote. So I can still go in and make changes to my Denon AVR, no matter if I'm, there or away. That's a big deal. It doesn't just stop. Denon AVR is a great example of an initial one, but this goes for any device that has a web interface. You have the ability to tunnel in and get access to that experience here. Right now, my is trying to create the connection to give me access. It's also what it's trying to do is understand am I local or remote. As you can see, that failed. That's an embarrassing example there. That's what I get for being on beta with OvrC today. But the idea with that is it gives you that local and remote access to your devices. So that's the web UI experience. And then building on that even further is the ability to not only get access to the web UI, but to also get access to the interface of a PC remotely using Windows Remote Desktop. So a lot of people don't realize we can do this. I always like to give this example. So you guys want a VPN to get access to program things remotely, which I get it. VPNs do have a lot of value in certain scenarios. The problem with VPNs when you're trying to program remotely is a lot of your programming tools today require that you use discovery methods to discover what's going on. I know Lutron struggles over VPNs occasionally to discover certain things. I know that, you know, if you're trying to use a VPN to do Control 4 stuff, even though Control 4 has built-in remote programming features, it can struggle. Even some of our own products like our Luma Discovery tool. And the reason being is that VPNs shed a lot of the tags that come with your network traffic, mainly because your VPNs, it's a tunnel, and that tunnel is a bottleneck, and it can only allow so much traffic through that tunnel. And so because of that, a lot of your tags that allow you to discover devices appropriately go away, and it makes your programming experience a little bit less. With OvrC, you have the ability to set up a remote access tunnel to a device using OvrC Pro. That's a big deal. And so the way this works is using Windows Remote Desktop Protocol. You enable it on that remote PC. What I tell a lot of people is on your high-profile jobs, deploy a little mini PC on those job sites. We know exactly how many PCs work. We've deployed, Jacob's on my call with me today, we've deployed about 40, give or take, remote PCs, if not more than 40 now, remote mini PCs in all of our training centers for Control 4 automation programmer training to maintain that training across the US. We paid about $300 to $350 per PC on those. That's not an extreme cost. And for you guys, that PC is about this big. If you deploy those PCs in the back of a rack of your high-profile jobs, make sure that's connected USB to your important devices, right? Because there's still devices that are going to require you to have a physical connection to, whether we like it or not. Some devices still require it. Make sure you have those physical devices set up and connected, and then your PC is on the network. You always have that PC now available for you to log into. Sure, you can set up TeamViewer to log into that. Eventually you're gonna have to pay for it though, because TeamViewer is gonna recognize you're using it for business. You can pay for LogMeIn Pro if you want to. With OvrC Pro, you have remote access for free. So all you're doing is enabling remote desktop protocol on that Windows PC. In OvrC, you're going to your site settings and you're going down to network ports scanned. These are the ports that we're scanning for services of your devices. So we have a bunch of default ports like 22 for SSH, Telnet, obviously 80 for HTTP, 443 for HTTPS, but you can also add custom ports as well. And so the examples, I have a few different custom ports for Windows Remote Desktop Protocol. I also have a custom port for Crestron, which gives you guys the ability to remotely program Crestron using OvrC Pro. Because if you are familiar with Crestron, all you have to do is open up Crestron Toolbox, drop in the IP address of your Crestron processor, and you can upload your programming in some of those ways. Same concept here with this. So once you have exposed the Windows Remote Desktop Protocol port to OvrC Pro, we'll now scan and recognize every device that is showing off that port. So for example here, I have a PC. Obviously, I can't do anything with this PC, but I do have Windows Remote Desktop Protocol enabled. If I click Open Connection here, it is seeing port 3389 is associated with this IP address on that device. It is going to create a unique custom URL that is an open tunnel with that URL. It's a temporary tunnel, but an open tunnel to that device remotely. And I can then take that URL and drop it into Windows Remote Desktop Protocol to get access to that PC and do whatever the heck I want. That's a big deal, guys. That's a huge value to allow this to happen. So I'm going to pull it up real quick. So you see I have that URL now created. If I click copy URL, this is my computer, so it's not going to fully work. But if I were to pop in that URL, it would ask me for the password of my computer. It's going to fail because I'm trying to connect to myself. But this already is telling me that it's already talked to the computer on the other end because it's asking me for the Windows security information of that computer. So while VPNs make sense, there are limitations to VPNs. Our solution is this, is if you know you have a job site that's high profile, that you want to make sure you always have connection and communication, use this feature. It's a great tool, a great feature to give you guys some of that control, some of that flexibility that you would have similarly if you had a VPN. It never hurts to have a PC on that job site. So I see a couple of request there for Lutron with Radio Rod 2 and HomeWorks. So for those that don't know, we do have integration with Rod 2 Select and OvrC Pro. That is actually direct or deep integration into the OvrC ecosystem that gives you remote programming capabilities with OvrC. Rod 2 and HomeWorks, really what I ask you guys, if that's something you guys really want to see more of, is I encourage you guys to mention that to Lutron as well. We develop OvrC Pro integrations in a few different ways. One, we look for open APIs. We look for manufacturers out there that you guys are using a lot, and we do our best to see if they have an open API, and if they do, let's integrate appropriately into those devices. If they don't have an open API, we'll reach out and see if they want to give us one. A lot of times we find that that API isn't conducive to what it is that's going to help you guys solve problems. We don't want to just throw a device in OvrC Pro if it doesn't actually allow you to solve a problem, if that makes sense. And then the third way is we work directly with these manufacturers to build the features needed to give you guys those types of controls and those types of feature sets. And so we work directly with Lutron to build Rod 2 Select integration into the OvrC Pro platform. Or actually not even OvrC Pro, it's a native device into OvrC. Rod 2 and HomeWorks are a couple that Lutron have kind of kept, to themselves under their belt as well. So, we think that there's value, but it's really up to these other manufacturers to get on board and want to work with us as well. And we're seeing more of that as OvrC becomes more powerful as a platform. But those are great examples. I think I get HomeWorks requests every single time I do an OvrC training asking for more of that type of feature sets and whatnot. So let me see a couple of these settings here, a couple of the questions. Is there a way to receive notifications via the app like you do when a device goes offline? So great question. I assume I know why you're asking this. So the question for those that didn't understand my mumbling, is there a way to receive a notification in your app when a device goes offline? And so you're probably asking that question because you have probably experienced it not working recently. And that is true. The push notifications from our apps were somewhat broken in the previous version of OvrC. The new version, I'm pleased to announce it works well again. So if I bring up my Android phone here, you actually see I have my location, this device the location has returned to normal. I did a firmware update earlier and that went offline, and now that's let me know that has returned to normal. If I select that notification, it would bring me into that location inside of OvrC. So that's a push notification. So if you guys are not seeing that today, please make sure that you are using the newest version of OvrC. You're still not using the old version. So make sure you're going into your app stores and you're updating the OvrC app so that you are utilizing the newest version on that platform. Because that was one of the big new feature sets, was improving the notifications, not just text message, not just email notifications, which we've always supported, but getting those push notifications working consistently again. So you should start seeing those again now that we're on the new platform. So I say a great question from John Pfeiffer on what about the Yamaha setup menu. So as I mentioned before, if a device has a web UI, you have access to the UI of that web interface. So that is every audio video receiver made in the past, 6-7 years that had web UIs. My Denon AVR X3000, that thing is, I think, 7 years old, guys. There's no advanced integration, but it still has access to that web UI. If I look at a Marantz audio video receiver, I have access to tunnel into the web UI of that device if I need to. Same access with Yamaha. But with Denon and Marantz and Yamaha audio video receivers, Pioneer, Onkyo, that were made in the last 2 to 3 years, we also have extra integration into the UI of those devices as well. And so the example you see here, this is the Yamaha streaming amplifier, the WXC50. The same thing would be if you jumped into any of your audio video receivers. We have a lot of great settings here in the cloud. I have the ability to come in and actually select an input on the device. I can reboot the network card. I can get status information over that Yamaha audio video receiver. I have IP information, MAC address information for everything on the device itself. What current status is it in right now? What is the Bluetooth info and what is it currently doing within Bluetooth? What are some of the statuses on speakers and speaker zones enabled, disabled. What is the dimmer setting for the front panel on the device, right? Some of these settings you don't need, but some are really powerful for you to be able to see and understand what's going on so that you can actually get more visibility to what the client's doing. The worst thing in the world is trying to be on the phone with the client and trying to ask them what they see on the front panel of that audio or video receiver. That front panel now is in OvrC. You can see everything. Or asking them to go grab the Yamaha remote and try and bring up the menu on their projector to figure out what's going on. You see that information here. You see all the stuff that's going on, which is really cool. This is some awesome stuff you have flexibility and visibility to. Seeing the status of all of the music services on there, if they're logged in or logged out currently. You can even see information around playlists that have been playing, so you can see if clients have been using the system. The point is, this is one of those examples where we work directly with Yamaha to not only give you guys better visibility to these feature sets, but to also give you guys better access to this product. So it's very unique when we talk about Yamaha with local, because the ultimate goal with this was, hey, let's develop a partnership where we're going to be an exclusive distributor for Yamaha in the custom install space, and you can get access to Yamaha products at Custom Plus, at Volume, at AllNet, at MRI, in the best way possible. And part of that value is you now have extra input and access into the OvrC ecosystem using OvrC Pro. So tons of great flexibility here, and then you still have access to get to the web UI of that Yamaha as well if you need to do extra setup on top of that. So that's a great example of some of the things you can really, really do with these platforms. So Ozzy was asking some more info on the mini PCs that we're talking about there. So the mini PCs that we've been using is the Intel NUC. I think some people call it NUC, some people call it NUC. I don't really know what the right pronunciation is, but it's NUC. I'll pull it up here. NUC is the example that we have been using. These things come in tons of different form factors. Your best option is to hop on Amazon and just search for them. You can buy them in really, really, really expensive models. I'm talking about like $2,000 mini PCs, and you can buy them with a little bit cheaper models that have a little bit less RAM, but are plentiful for what you guys need to be on those job sites. You can buy them in kits to build yourself. You can actually buy just the board for one of those and put it in your own casing if you want to. It's almost like a Raspberry Pi, but in a Windows form factor to give you guys that flexibility. The key that I will make sure you guys understand is that you do have to have Windows 10 Pro deployed on those machines. Windows removed remote desktop from the Windows 10 Home Edition. You do have to have Windows 10 Pro deployed on those PCs to get access to the Windows Remote Desktop Protocol. Just remember that. So great question. Thanks for asking me to power on that for you guys. Let me look at a few more of these questions. There's some great ones that are coming through here. Let me see here. So John was asking, can you add setup to the IP address of any Yamaha device we're able to access so it's not just the client-side web access? So I guess, John, I wanted to get some more clarification there. Yes. Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're asking, and I've heard that. So if the main web UI of Yamaha, from what I understand, is very basic, right? You don't have all the advanced feature sets that are there. Let me see if it'll pull up this UI here for me on my beta interface here to give you an example. So when OvrC pulls up the UI of the Yamaha, it's probably going to jump into the basic interface first. You can easily update the URL that OvrC creates and add in that / setup that you're asking about, John. So if it pulls up this UI here, I'll show you what I mean. So yeah, this is my beta version's having some issues here. It's what I get for being on beta. But that URL that you saw me create earlier within OvrC Pro, let me pull that up here so you see what I mean. So that URL there, if I were to do / setup right here and then do my : 18727 there at the end, that would allow me to pull in the proper Yamaha UI on that experience as well. So yes, you can do that. And actually I put that / in the wrong spot. It's / and you do setup like that. So that's going to allow you to get into that proper Yamaha UI if it doesn't pull up right away. So yes, 100%. You can do that with any device. So if the UI that it pulls up right away isn't exactly the UI you want to see, if you know that that it requires extra pieces of the URL, we don't always know which one you want to go to. You can easily update it appropriately. And so I really do appreciate that response there, John. That makes it easier for you. That's what I like to see. Another example of where that comes into play is like with our autonomic pieces that are out there. You have the ability to get access to the web UI to control the audio from autonomic. You can also go into the management side of autonomic as well. So great question there, Chris. Chris asked, he saw Blue Bolt in our device list, and does that mean we're able to toggle outlets on those? Yes, it does. And so you might think, well, what the heck? Why would you guys have Panamax Blue Bolt available to control within OvrC when you guys have Wattbox? Well, we know that a lot of you guys use it, and it could be two ways. One, maybe you just decide that you like Blue Bolt better as a platform and you want to keep using that. We're going to keep telling you how great we think Wattbox is and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, if you like Blue Bolt, we want to give you guys control. We don't want you to have to navigate between multiple interfaces to get access to those devices. But also, if you've been a historic Blue Bolt user and you want to make the decision to jump over to Wattbox and OvrC, we don't want to force you to have to go to every single job site and update with Wattboxes just to have access. And so we give you access to your Blue Bolt devices in a similar way that you have access to your OvrC devices. You have the ability to power cycle, turn outlets on and off, just like if it was a Wattbox. You have the ability to reboot the entire device if you need to, getting some good status information. We don't have the ability to name the outlets individual just yet, but you do have device notes for this specific device. So you could easily come into here and name outlet 1 cable modem, and jump down and name this router, jump down and name this control system. And so that information will be saved. And so the next person that comes in, if they don't know what the outlets are, they can jump in here and use these device notes. I strongly encourage these device notes. This is one of my, actually, I said there was no new features in this, or no grand features. This is a freaking grand feature. You don't know, from an education standpoint, our team, you don't know how much we talk about documentation, consistent documentation, writing down what you do. In the old version of OvrC, all you had was global device notes, where you had the ability to put device notes for the entire job site, which is good, but it was only for the job site. In the new version of OvrC, you have device notes for every single device individually, and every single person in your company will see those device notes. Those are for standard native devices and your third-party devices as well. So you can put password information in for those third-party devices that's saved within OvrC. You don't have to worry about it being, harmed or taken away. You can put in, information around where that device is at. You can put in information around the names of your outlets, whatever it may be, whatever works for you. You have the ability to do that with those device notes. So that's a great example there. So I saw a great question that I'll ask, and then I'll jump back into the OvrC side. Any ETA on Arachnus routers and dual WAN support? So great question, Adam. From what I understand, we are currently in beta with that dual WAN support. From what I last heard, they found a bug. They were not happy with the bug and the experience it would create for you guys. And so we have had to start over on a new beta cycle. Usually our beta cycle was at least 30 days to make sure that it's going to work appropriately for you. So I know that it is on the horizon. It is not a day or two type of thing, but it is definitely on the horizon. I wish it was out for you guys already, but it definitely is. It's coming, and it is in beta, which is better than what it has been previously. So good question. I just want to make sure I covered that a little bit before as well. So I saw a question from Eric that you said you have Luma cameras, and every time you hit the connect button, it fails, just like a different than you explained there. So one thing I will say that I'll point to first is I want to define the Web Connect experience when you have OvrC Pro deployed versus just a standard OvrC device. Let me see if I can find one to give you an example here. No, let's see if I can find a non-OvrC Pro location and give you some examples there. So here's an example. This is when you don't have OvrC Pro deployed and you just have standard OvrC devices, they're going to use what's called UPnP, universal plug and play to try and open up a remote tunnel. The problem with UPnP is that it will fail quite often if you have a modem router combo from the ISP sitting in front of our Arachnus router that's out there. The reason being is a lot of these people don't like it. It can be insecure, so on and so forth. And so UPnP, essentially it's like port forwarding. And a lot of times it can fail remotely because UPnP is not supported. If you have OvrC Pro deployed, we are using an SSH tunnel to get it into those devices, which for Luma is a much better way to access, because when you access a Luma camera or a Luma recorder, you're actually having to talk to a few different ports at one time. It's not just port 80 for the Web UI, it's port 80 for the Web UI and port 8000 to get video through that Web UI. And so that, if you can't open those together, then it will fail in that experience there. And so that's why always having that OvrC Pro deployed is going to make your life much easier for some of those types of examples that we kind of mentioned there already. So I always just wanted to make sure you guys understand the differences there. With that is, if you have OvrC Pro deployed, you're going to access your devices via SSH, and then if you have your your actual experiences or user interfaces without OvrC Pro, it's going to use UPnP, which is going to be a little bit slower process there for you guys. So I saw some good examples here. What about pack-edge products that will be integrated into the OvrC ecosystem? So if you guys didn't see a couple of weeks ago, we did announce that OvrC is the combined cloud platform for you guys, for everyone going forward. So we've started some of that transition already. I believe we have a few access points that may be on OvrC already on the package side of things. We're kind of doing it in phases. And as we continue to enable new products, as you saw on my location, we just released our pack-edge MS switches just this week. That's our new layer 3 pack-edge switch. That device is already native into the OvrC ecosystem. We will slowly continue to push out firmware updates for other pack-edge products to enable them for OvrC as well. That goes from routers to switches to access points over time. So I don't know the exact time frames of all of them, but they should all be on OvrC before the end of the year, if not much sooner, to give you guys that combined experience there. So we're getting kind of close to the end here, guys, and the questions are starting to get a little bit close to the end as well. So I see one more, which is a good question. Is it could I speak to the security of the data in Amazon Web Servers and ensuring the data isn't exposed to the open internet? So that's a great question. And what I'll say is that we take security very seriously, and we've actually been taking it very seriously for quite a while now. We actually hire third-party security firms to continuously check up on the security of not just our cloud platform, but all of our software on our devices and firmware on our devices. What I mean by that is they do testing with our devices to, one, make sure that custom firmware can't be loaded onto our devices, and two, make sure that the device inside of our OvrC platform isn't exposed, isn't opened, and isn't going to be accessed out in the world. And so the first thing is, we're not storing personal information. We're not, technically there's addresses that could be there and phone numbers. We're not storing, payment information inside the OvrC platform and whatnot. So that's safe, and it's as safe as it's going to be with any Amazon Web Services client. I won't say that it can never be accessed, right? Anything can happen, but it would have to be a complete failure of the Amazon Web Services ecosystem for our stuff to be deployed. What I will say is that your OvrC accounts are only as powerful and as strong as your passwords, right? And you want to have strong passwords for your accounts. But we also have a feature that a lot of people don't realize, that if you go to your menu and you go to user settings, we do offer two-factor authentication with these devices as well. So you can add two-factor authentication to your OvrC accounts so that you guys can create an experience where you can add a phone number, and then every time your device is attempted to be logged into from a new device, you can ask that a verification code be emailed or text or sent to both devices or locations to verify that device is safe and that you authorize access with that. And so that allows you to protect your account appropriately as well. So we do a lot of work in the back end to make sure our platforms are secure across the board. We have an entire cybersecurity team. Not just one guy kind of working out of his office. We have a full team at SnapAV that's providing cybersecurity for our employees, as well as our actual software and devices we're deploying to you guys as dealers that you're giving to your clients. So I know that we have some other information out there today that is available for you guys to give and talk about. I don't know if we finished it yet. Let me check real quick. Yeah, I know that we have some other information out there that we're trying to offer to talk more about some of the encryption that we're using in the OvrC platform to ensure that your data is safe and secure. I don't have it on top of at my hands right now. That was a great question, Adam. And if you ever want to follow up with me, please feel free to do so, because I'd love to talk about that more if we could. And then the last question I see there is from John is, do we have a list of devices that need to update firmware for access to OvrC? Great question. I don't think we have a full list just yet, but if you log into Backpack, you should see those devices having a firmware update available that would be that OvrC update. So I don't have one just yet. I think we're working on one. I'll make sure to submit that feedback to the team so that we can have that. The last question, and I'll be done, and I'll pass it back over to Gary, is two-factor authentication available today? It is, yes. So you log into your devices right now, you guys have the ability to enable two-factor authentication right this second. So if you haven't tested it, please do, and you have the ability to enable that, again, like I said, at every device level, phones, tablets, and desktop interface. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate the time. I'm going to pass it back over to Gary. I have another webinar that I'm conducting for a different group after this, and I will definitely talk to you guys next time. If you want to come join me again on Thursday and ask some more questions, please feel free to do so. Other than that, you guys have a great day.